Hello and welcome, I'm Joshua Barnes and you're watching NewsX World. Let's first take a look at our top stories. India reports that Pakistan has violated the line of control ceasefire for a 10th consecutive night as Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi says he will take firm and decisive action against terrorists. Meanwhile, Russia calls for diplomacy and an easing of India-Pakistan tensions. Ukraine says that Russian strikes on the capital city of Kyiv have injured 11 people with reported residential fires. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he won't play Putin's games over a short-term ceasefire. Israel's military has issued thousands of call-up notices to reservists to support an expanded offensive in Gaza. According to Israeli media, it comes as Israel calls on Qatar to stop playing both sides in ceasefire talks. Meanwhile, the United Nations Special Envoy Geir Pedersen has urged Israel to halt attacks on Syria at once. Strikes on the Islamist-led authorities have followed sectarian violence, with Israel saying its forces are ready to protect the Druze minority. Following a landslide federal election victory in Australia, Anthony Albanese's Labour Party say they will prioritise dealing with the US-China trade war. Albanese says he will run a disciplined and orderly government. The UK police have arrested 5 men, including 4 Iranians, in connection with a suspected terror plot. The Metropolitan Police says the arrests relate to a suspected plot to target a specific premises, though limited information has been released. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum says she has rejected a proposal from Donald Trump to send US troops to Mexico to combat drug trafficking. Sheinbaum says the offer was rejected because sovereignty is not for sale. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has touted great progress during a visit to a tank factory amid a push to modernise nuclear and missile arsenals. The US and South Korea suspect that technical support may have come from Russia. Pakistani troops have violated the ceasefire along the line of control for the 10th consecutive night. During the night of May the 3rd into the morning of May the 4th, unprovoked small arms fire was reported across multiple locations opposite Kupwara, Baramulla, Poonch, Rajouri, Mendar, Nashira, Sundarbani and Aknur in Jammu and Kashmir. Indian forces responded promptly and proportionately to the violations. Pakistan has announced the closure of its ports to ships arriving from India. This follows India's decision to ban all direct and indirect imports from the neighbouring country. Jassim al-Badawi, Secretary General of the Gulf Cooperation Council, expressed the Council's deep concern over the deteriorating security situation in South Asia, urging restraints, prioritisation of dialogue and the urgent resumption of negotiations between the Islamic Republic of Pakistan and the Republic of India. Meanwhile, Pakistan's military has said that Abdali weapon systems were launched to test operational readiness and validate the system's upgraded navigation and manoeuvrability capabilities. External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar spoke with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov about the Pelgam terror attack. Lavrov urged New Delhi and Islamabad to resolve differences through political and diplomatic channels, in line with a similar agreement of 1972 and the Lahore Declaration of 1999. India has now reached out to all current members of the UN Security Council except China and Pakistan. Moving on to the Middle East now, and Qatar has hit back at Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, rejecting his criticism of its role in the Gaza truce negotiations. Acting as a key mediator between Israel and Hamas, Qatar says Netanyahu's remarks lack both political judgment and moral responsibility. Foreign Ministry spokesman Majid al-Ansari slammed the comments online, calling them inflammatory. This comes after Netanyahu's office issued a strongly worded statement urging Qatar to choose between civilization and Hamas. Netanyahu claimed Doha could not serve as a neutral broker while maintaining ties with both. Meanwhile, Israel is mobilizing tens of thousands of reservists ahead of a widening offensive in Gaza. Israeli media reported that the military is issuing call-up orders to replace active troops in Israel and the occupied West Bank. The military has neither confirmed nor denied these reports. Meanwhile, in Tel Aviv, demonstrators gathered outside the Defense Ministry, demanding action to secure the release of hostages held in Gaza and an end to the war. Protesters waved Israeli flags and held portraits of captives taken during the October 7th attacks. Let's listen in to what some of the protesters had to say.
I'm afraid of where this country is going towards with this very interest-oriented, politically oriented government, where nothing is really for the benefit of the citizens and more for their own benefit. So yes, I want to change this government. I want to be part of this force here that will maybe bring about the change, because we need that change.
Came to support Israeli democracy and the return of the hostages. And there's a sense of, we're drowning in the mud. There's no strategic decision made. It should be some thought of the day after, maybe some kind of, constructive work with other countries in the region that are more on the stable side, like Saudi Arabia. Something that would change the policy and most importantly bring back the hostages to us.
Meanwhile, airstrikes continued to hit Gaza with plumes of smoke rising over Al-Mawasi and Khan Yunis. Hamas's armed wing released a video of an Israeli-Russian hostage who appeared to be injured. In the 4-minute clip, the hostage spoke in Hebrew and showed bandages on his head and arm, claiming he was wounded in a recent strike. And yesterday, hostage families gathered to demand answers from Prime Minister Netanyahu and urged a return to negotiations to end the ongoing war. Let's hear from one of them now.
The military operation is going stronger and stronger, and they're talking about bringing more troops and reserves, and we're really afraid that it's going to kill most of the hostages that are still alive and bury the other one forever. We ask President Trump, please help us, because it's in your power to end this war and release all the hostages back to.
We head to Europe now, and Russia has reportedly launched an overnight drone attack on Kyiv, injuring at least 11 people, including 2 children, and set several residential buildings on fire throughout the city, according to the military and officials of the Ukrainian capital. Timur Tkaichenko, head of Kyiv's military administration, said on social media that falling debris from destroyed drones had sparked fires at residential buildings in Kyiv's Obolonsky and Sviatoshensky districts. Ukraine's emergency service also said that 76 firefighters were involved in putting out the overnight fires in Kyiv. Well, this comes amid rising tensions over the 3-day ceasefire proposed by Russian President Vladimir Putin. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has accused Putin of playing games after the Russian leader proposed the 72-hour unilateral ceasefire to coincide with Moscow's Victory Day commemorations. Zelensky has also called the truce a theatrical performance on Putin's part and said that Ukraine could not guarantee the safety of any foreign dignitaries who came to Moscow for the Victory Day. Meanwhile, Russia reportedly continues to reject an unconditional 30-day ceasefire pushed by Ukraine and the United States, which is trying to broker an end to the 3-year war. Moving on now, Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is celebrating a resounding re-election victory, becoming the first in 2 decades to win back-to-back terms. The centre-left Labour Party is projected to expand its majority, defying months of trailing polls and growing voter frustration over inflation and cost of living pressures. But the tide turned when the opposition Conservatives, led by Peter Dutton, proposed slashing the federal workforce and forcing public servants back into offices 5 days a week. That move, likened to Trump-era policies, sparked backlash and was seen as unfair to working women. Now Treasurer Jim Chalmers says the government's top priority is managing the global uncertainty from the US-China trade war. He called it the dark shadow over Australia's economic outlook. Let's listen in to what he had to say.
Obviously, the immediate focus is on this global economic uncertainty, particularly the US and China part of that and what it means for us. And so I was able to be briefed on that, what's happening in markets and what it means for the Australian economy. So clearly that's the immediate focus. And again, I think one of the reasons why we got this big majority last night is because people recognised that if you wanted stability while the global economy was going crazy, then a majority Labor government was the best way to deliver that.
Meanwhile, Albanese, speaking to reporters after the win, said Australians voted for unity rather than division. He promised a disciplined and orderly government that would work every day to ease cost of living pain and navigate global challenges. Let's listen in to what the Australian Prime Minister said.
The Australian people voted for unity rather than division. We will be a disciplined, orderly government in our second term, just like we have been in our first. We've been given the great honour of serving the Australian people, and we don't take it for granted, and we'll work hard each and every day. Thank you.
Well, partial results show Labor on track to win at least 83 seats, with the opposition securing just 38. More than two-thirds of votes have been counted, with the rest due potentially on Monday. Dutton, who had campaigned on hardline Conservative policies, suffered a major blow, losing his own seat in a rare political upset. For now, it's celebration time for Albanese, who made a quick stop at his local cafe and even scooped ice cream for the press before heading to a Sydney brewery serving Albo Pale Ale. Well, joining us to discuss this victory and what the future holds for Australia under Anthony Albanese's stewardship is Charles Thompson, an Australian journalist joining us from Sydney. Charles, thank you for being here with us. Let's first look at this election victory. What was it that swayed the Australian people to throw their support almost completely behind Anthony Albanese?
Surprise, surprise. It's just like Canada. Even after the votes were just counted, they were saying that the Labor Party would come in as a minority, and yet it's come in as a majority. The left to the Labor Party, the Greens, look like they'll get no seats, almost exactly like what happened in Canada with to the left, whilst to the right of the Liberal Party, who did very badly, the Nationals, they got 10 seats in the last Parliament, they're getting 10 seats again. So it seems to be a mirror from Australia and Canada. You know, congratulations to the Prime Minister. It's amazing that they've got such a big majority, and I know, and everybody knows, they weren't expecting it.
Yes, absolutely. Charles, what do you think the catalyst is, and what role did Donald Trump have to play if he is the reason for this landslide victory for the Labor Party?
I think what it is uncertainty. Of course, Trump played a factor, but it's the big uncertainty, the big unknown. And for some reason, this spooked more people to the left of the Labor Party, just like it did in Canada with the Liberals to the left of them. It spooked them, rather than voting for minor parties, to vote for the main party on the left side of politics. And the result is that Labor Party now has a thumping majority. And it looks like they'll also get it in the upper house, in the Senate too. Of course, it's a complicated voting system in the upper house. It will take a bit of time, but there's a possibility that either they may, or they may still need the support of the Greens, but not of all the other smaller parties.
Charles, before we look at the challenges that Anthony Albanese will be facing, how catastrophic is it for Peter Dutton and his political career that he's lost his seat? A similar move again to the one that we saw in Canada with Pierre Poilievre.
Oh, you see, he's had that seat for many years. It's always been on a fine margin. The Labor candidate who took him on has fought a number of battles against him and lost. I'm pretty sure he'll probably retire from politics now. Now, of course, just like in Canada, the big question is who is going to lead the Liberal Party going forward. And now, there's not such a big pool of people to choose from. And that, of course, will also keep them in disarray for some time until a leader is chosen and they'll have to go forward. And I think, of course, one of the other things or one of the other factors was the issue of nuclear, because they were pushing for the nuclear option of building nuclear power stations, and definitely in the middle of politics, the people who vote either Liberal or Labor from time to time. I think that was a bit disconcerting considering the amount of money they wanted to spend on it.
Yes, Charles, let's move on now to some of the issues in Australia that Anthony Albanese is going to need to overcome if he's going to continue this level of support that he has seen at the election. We know, obviously, cost of living is an issue. Could you delve deeper into that and any major other issues that he will have to tackle during this next term?
Cost of living is a big issue. Petrol is very expensive. Because of the tariffs from Trump, everybody's superannuation, or in India, as we call it, I think it's PF, provincial fund, has all dropped. So it's a knife edge as far as cost of living is concerned. So he's going to have to address that over this next term if he wishes to win yet again government. And that's a big factor amongst Australians.
Yes, Charles, thank you ever so much for being here with us and joining us to provide an insight. As that reign gets underway, the second term for Anthony Albanese, we will be across all of the developments. But we move on now to Europe, and British police have arrested 5 men, including 4 Iranians, on suspicion of terrorism offences. The arrests happened in London, Swindon and Greater Manchester. Authorities say the men were planning to target a specific location. The suspects are aged between 29 and 46 and are being held on suspicion of preparing a terrorist act. One of the men's nationalities is still being confirmed. The UK's counter-terrorism chief says this is a fast-moving investigation. He added that they're working closely with the targeted site and are keeping them updated. Police are still in the early stages of the probe. They're looking into possible motives and whether there's any wider threat to the public. Moving now to North America, and Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum has rejected a proposal from US President Donald Trump to send American troops into Mexico. The move, Trump said, was aimed at helping fight drug cartels. Sheinbaum said sovereignty is not for sale, firmly pushing back on the idea of deeper US military involvement on Mexican soil. Her response follows a Wall Street Journal report claiming Trump was pressuring Mexico to allow US forces to combat trafficking along the shared border. A spokesperson from the US National Security Council said Trump has been clear Mexico must do more to fight cartels. The US, they said, is ready to assist and expand joint efforts. They also noted Trump and Sheinbaum have worked closely to secure the southern US border, but warned that cartels and foreign terror groups continue to pose a serious threat. The White House has not confirmed whether Trump formally proposed troop deployments in recent talks with Sheinbaum. Let's listen in to the Mexican president.
En una de las llamadas me dijo que era importante que entrara el ejército de los Estados Unidos a México para ayudarnos en la lucha contra el narco. Y quiero decir que es verdad, que en algunas de las llamadas, pero no así como lo menciona, dijo: ¿en qué les podemos ayudar para luchar contra el narcotráfico? Les propongo que entre el ejército de los Estados Unidos a ayudarle. ¿Y saben qué le dije? No, presidente Trump. El territorio es inviolable, la soberanía es inviolable, la soberanía no se vende. Puede colaborar, podemos trabajar juntos, pero ustedes en su territorio, nosotros en el nuestro, podemos compartir información, pero nunca vamos a aceptar la presencia del ejército de Estados Unidos en nuestro.
We now head to Africa and the country of Sudan, and according to reports, a drone strike has hit the airport of Port Sudan, the seat of the Sudanese army-aligned government on the Red Sea coast. So far, no casualties have been reported. An army spokesman, Nabil Abdullah, said that the rival paramilitary Rapid Support Forces launched several suicide drones at the coastal city, targeting the airport, as well as a goods warehouse and some civilian facilities in the city of Port Sudan, causing limited damage. This comes after at least 7 people were killed and 20 injured at the last remaining hospital and pharmacy in Sudan's Fangak County, where destroyed in bombers. Eyewitnesses' footage reportedly show people carrying pails of water as they scrambled to put out a fire at MSF's pharmacy in Old Fangak. According to medical charity Medicine Sans Frontieres, helicopter gunships dropped a bomb on the pharmacy of the hospital, burning it down before firing on the town for 30 minutes, and then a drone bombed a local market. The hospital is the only one in Fangak County, which has a population of more than 110,000 people, and all its medical supplies were destroyed in the attack. Meanwhile, Sudanese paramilitaries have carried out a rare drone attack in the army-controlled east, targeting the fuel storage area at Kassala Airport near the border with Eritrea, according to reports. Heading now to the Middle East, and the United Nations Special Envoy Geir Pedersen has urged Israel to halt its attacks on Syria at once after it carried out multiple airstrikes targeting the Islamist-led authorities following sectarian violence this week. Fresh Israeli raids were reported overnight after Israel said repeatedly that its forces stood ready to protect the Druze minority after sectarian clashes killed 119 people, mostly Druze fighters, according to a Britain-based war monitor. Since ousting longtime ruler Bashar al-Assad in December, Syria's new authorities have vowed inclusive rule in the country, but they reportedly also contend with pressure from radical Islamists in their ranks. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said more than 20 strikes hit military targets across Syria on Friday in what it called the heaviest assaults carried out by Israel on its neighbour this year. Staying in the region, Yemen's government has appointed Finance Minister Salem Saleh bin Barak as the new Prime Minister after Ahmed bin Mubarak resigned, citing inability to exercise full powers. Mubarak, a long-time Houthi adversary and former US envoy. He had clashed with the Saudi-backed Presidential Leadership Council and suspended multiple ministry budgets over corruption. Bin Barak is viewed as a non-confrontational and backed by UAE-aligned Yemeni politician and Saudi officials, and is expected to ease internal tensions. The leadership shift comes amid rising regional turmoil as Iran-backed Houthi rebels who control much of northern Yemen continue missile strikes on Israel and Red Sea shipping in response to the Gaza war. The conflict in Yemen has been ongoing since 2014 and has caused mass casualties and remains one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. Moving on now, voters have handed Singapore's long-time ruling party a landslide election victory, offering Prime Minister Lawrence Wong a clear mandate to navigate the trade-orientated Southeast Asian nation through economic upheaval sparked by looming US tariffs. Wong's People's Action Party took all but 10 seats in the 97-seat unicameral legislature, with a total of 65.57% of the vote. More than 2.4 million votes were cast in the island states in Saturday's polls. Wong has said that Singaporeans gave the PAP a strong mandate to govern, hours after the official results were announced. He also stated that the results will put Singapore in a better position to face the turbulent world, and that they were a clear signal of trust, stability and confidence in the government. Let's take a look at what he said.
The election takes place at a critical time for Singapore. It is a changed world, not just an economic slowdown, but fundamental shifts in the international order. And we've just had a leadership transition. This is my first election as Prime Minister and Secretary General of the PAP. My team and I gave it our all in this campaign, and I am deeply humbled and grateful for the results.
A key G20 energy transition working group meeting in Cape Town has spotlighted Africa's urgent need for energy security amid the global push toward a fair, affordable shift to renewables. South Africa urged G20 nations to support developing countries balancing decarbonisation with economic growth and energy access. Energy Minister Ramagopha stressed that this transition must consider domestic conditions and not stifle development. Financing remains a major hurdle, with calls for wealthy nations to meet their obligations. The EU has pledged €4.4 billion to South Africa's clean energy efforts, focusing on green hydrogen. China also signed an MOU to develop nuclear-powered small modular reactors, boosting South Africa's energy resilience. Officials say these partnerships are vital for economic upliftment and a sustainable transition across Africa, where millions still lack access to electricity. Here is what the South African Electricity and Energy Minister, Kogasintu, has said.
Important that we are able to manage this transition in a manner that takes into account our own domestic.
Moving to North America now, and Warren Buffett will step down as chief executive of Berkshire Hathaway at the end of this year, concluding a remarkable 60-year career that turned a struggling textile company into a $1.16 trillion conglomerate. He made the announcement at the close of Berkshire's annual meeting in Omaha, naming Vice Chairman Greg Abel as his successor. Buffett, who will turn 95 this year, plans to stay on in a limited role, but says Abel will have the final say on company decisions. Praise continued to pour in from business leaders. JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon called Buffett a symbol of American capitalism, while Apple CEO Tim Cook said he was inspired by Buffett's wisdom. Buffett's fortune now stands at $168.2 billion, almost entirely in Berkshire stock. Investors have long seen Berkshire and Buffett's leadership as a safe haven amid economic uncertainty and tariff policies under US President Donald Trump. Staying in the region, and a small plane crashed into two homes in Simi Valley, California, killing 2 people and a dog. The Ventura County Fire Department confirmed the crash damaged 2 buildings and shared video footage of the aftermath on social media. Both homes were occupied at the time, but residents were safely evacuated without injury. The 4-seater single-engine aircraft plane had taken off from William J. Fox Airfield in Lancaster and was seen en route to Camarillo Airport, where it crashed around 40 miles from LA. Firefighters contained the blaze and around 40 responders were on the scene. The Federal Aviation Administration and National Transportation Safety Board are investigating the incident. Moving on now, Brice Oligui Nguema has officially taken office as Gabon's president after securing nearly 95% of the votes in last month's election, formalising his leadership following the August 2023 coup that ended the Bongo family's 55-year rule. The inauguration took place at the Adgonje Stadium in Libreville, drew in a crowd of 40,000 and over 20 African heads of state, including leaders from Senegal, the Gambia, Djibouti, Equatorial Guinea and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Celebrations filled Libreville's streets, featuring cultural performances and a military parade. Oligui transitions from leading the 19-month interim government to tackling major national challenges. With Gabon's economy heavily reliant on oil and burdened by debt, his presidency is expected to prioritise infrastructure renewal and economic diversification. Oligui's administration is expected to focus on infrastructure development and economic diversification to restore prosperity and address decades of inequality. Moving on, Jean-Lucien Kwasi Savi-de-Tove, a former opposition leader and ex-minister, is unanimously elected as Togo's new ceremonial president. This follows sweeping constitutional reforms implemented on May the 6th, 2024, that transformed Togo into a parliamentary system. Executive power now lies with the President of the Council of Ministers, a role reserved for the leader of the National Assembly's majority party, marking a major shift in the country's political structure. Let's listen in to what Jean-Lucien had to say.
Kwasi Lagnon Savi-de-Tove, président de la République togolaise, élu conformément aux lois de la République, jurons solennellement fidélité à la Constitution de la République.
Meanwhile, Foire Esomina Gnaskagbe, who has led Togo since 2005, was sworn in on Saturday as President of the Council of Ministers, now which is the country's highest executive position. This comes after the Prime Minister and Cabinet stepped down as their roles were removed by a new constitution. Critics say the changes are meant to help Gnaskagbe stay in power without elections. The ceremony marked the start of Togo's new paramilitary system, the Fifth Republic. Let's hear what Foire Gnaskagbe has had to say.
Nous, Fort Esomina Gnaskagbe, président du Conseil désigné conformément aux lois de la République, jurons solennellement de respecter et de défendre la Constitution que la République togolaise s'est librement donnée, de remplir loyalement et fidèlement notre mission de serviteur du peuple, de nous engager à consacrer toutes nos forces à la défense de la patrie.
14 children aged between 11 and 14 years old have been arrested after a boy died in a fire at an industrial site in Gateshead, the United Kingdom. Northumbria police said that the 11 boys and 3 girls were arrested on suspicion of manslaughter after the incident on Friday, where a boy died in a fire in the Bill Key area. So far, the 14 children remain in police custody. Police then issued an appeal for a missing boy, Leighton Carr, who was believed to be in the area at the time of the fire. Previously, in a statement, the force had said that following searches, a body believed to be that of a 14-year-old Leighton Carr was located deceased inside the industrial site building. The police also said that Leighton's next of kin have been informed and are being supported by specialist officers. We bring you some breaking news now, and Israel's military confirms a missile was launched from Yemen today. Sirens were triggered in parts of Israel, including areas near Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Several interception attempts were made, and reports indicate a projectile fell in central Israel. We will, of course, bring you all of the updates from that as we get more information. But that is all that we have time for. We'll continue to bring you that and more of the latest breaking news from across the world.